Good evening, everyone. It is 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on September 21st. We are tired, but we are excited as we are beginning the next episode of Quarantined at Harvard. My name is Fez Zuffer, and I am joined by co-host Melissa Mung, in addition to our two amazing guests, Tyler and Kristian. Melissa, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit as well?
Yeah, of course. I am, again, as Pez said, one of the co hosts, Melissa Mung. I'm calling you from Winthrop House right now, but yeah, we're super excited today to talk with Kristian and Tyler, just like on a range of things. And so I guess, Fez, if you want to start out with an introductory question to get things rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think that both of you guys are pretty well known within the first year community, but for those of you who may be living under a rock who are not familiar with Kristian and Tyler, can both of you please briefly introduce yourselves? Why don't you share where you're originally from, what house you're in? If you want, you can even share what classes you're in. So Kristian, I'll hand it to you first.
Yeah, so my name's Christian. I'm from South Carolina and I'm living on campus in Mauer Hall in Ivy Yard. And I'm taking theater class, X plus 20. My freshman seminar is LGBT life stories, and then I am taking Gullah, which is an African Creole, as my language. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome, Tyler.
Hi, my name is Tyler. I'm from Southern California. I am a first year living in Mather right now. So if you're into industrialism like me, it's not industrialism, industrialism like me, then you're kind of in heaven. Um, and I am planning to concentrate in human evolutionary biology. So my classes right now are Math 1B, uh, my freshman seminar, which is Biology of Symbiosis, Life Science 1A, and my always forget what the name of the expository writing, which is humans, nature, and the environment.
Awesome. And before we really get the ball rolling, I just want to show the contrast here. Look at everybody's backgrounds. You have Melissa with all the color. You have Tyler and Kristian who have just like this aesthetic thing set up. And then for me, there's a reason why my camera is tilted up because I don't want the background to get in. Just I'm still trying to get on board with the whole college thing. But really, I think what ties our two guests together today are that both of them happen to be pretty YouTube famous. I don't know if our folks watching know this. First of all, go check out their YouTube channels by searching their names. You guys can very easily find them. But one thing that both of our guests have done that I think everyone who probably attends Harvard is familiar with is the college admission reaction video. So those are, for those of you who aren't familiar, the videos where we react to our admission decisions. And I want to go to each of you so you can describe, first of all, what was it like not only opening those admission decisions, but then also having a camera and realizing that this is probably going to be put on YouTube someday?
I would definitely say that it was a very unique experience. I think you're right that it is a pretty quintessential shared community between the Ivy League groups, especially at Harvard. Seems like anyone who just sets up a camera and records themselves opening up college decisions these days tends to have some decent amount of success on YouTube, and definitely that's kind of been the experience for myself as well.
Sure.
In terms of making the video itself, it was certainly an odd experience because it was not how I ever envisioned it going with the circumstances of the pandemic. And you can kind of see that in my video itself, as my first videos are opened alongside tons of friends and family, and my last couple of the IVs are all opened just in my bedroom with my family members. Um, and it was also surreal to um, kind of put yourself in that position. I always knew I wanted to record those memories, if not to post it, just to remember them, especially watching all of the experiences of others online and getting excited seeing those. But it was certainly something I'm glad I did because I love to go back and watch that moment of opening that admissions decision and the excitement on mine and everyone else's faces.
It's awesome.
Yeah, my kind of story is kind of similar, I guess. I started my channel about 6 or 7 months before I had my reaction video up, but I knew going into like the whole YouTube journey that I wanted to do one because I was just like so obsessed with them since like middle school, which I think most of us are. Like we've watched tons of them the ones that go like super viral were just like, wow, like that's so crazy. And I knew that I wanted to like contribute my own experiences to that space, especially when it comes to like representation and showing that like being from the South and being Black and stuff, that like you still can apply and get into like all these crazy schools.
Right.
And so yeah, that was something that I was like really wanted to do. And I think filming my video was actually kind of not how I expected, because I found out about like my most like crucial, like I think Harvard and Duke, I had the most like intense reactions, and I didn't even like record them because I found out kind of in like unconventional ways. And
Mm,
so that kind of was unfortunate for video purposes, but I still like included my own little DIY version in the video so people could
sure.
see. um, but I think filming was honestly kind of fun. Like, it was a little, like, nerve-wracking because, like, what if I don't get in? I'm, like, recording myself getting rejected, that's kinda sad, but, everyone has to take those L's, so I just kind of, like, went through it, and it was really cool, like, how I said to, like, look back on it and kind of that was, like, the reward for all the years of, like, craziness, so I'm definitely glad that I did it.
Melissa, did you record yourself?
I did, but
Ooh.
I can't say I seem to hold the same feelings for mine because I literally just stared at the camera and I was like, and then I just ran out of my room. And so it's funny looking back on it, but when I think about it, I'm just like, why do I look so emotionless? Like, I will say I definitely cried and like hugged my parents like a long time afterwards, but the initial shock was just too much for me.
Is that video on YouTube, Melissa? I'm just curious.
Oh no, no, I do not have the. I commend you guys for putting your like being bold and putting your videos on YouTube because I could never.
We will find that
I think
video and
you
it'll get
definitely could.
online somehow.
Yes, we think you should.
So, ooh, I'm gonna pretend I do not see
Look
that.
out for a leak of Melissa's acceptance coming to a
Soon.
podcast near you soon.
But so, how have I think now we're going into really the third week of being on campus. I think the third of 11, I believe. We're going back home around November 22nd, right around Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
So what have the first 3 weeks been like for you guys? Are you still settling in? Do you think you have the routine down? What's it been like for you?
The first 3 weeks have honestly kind of been a roller coaster. Overall, I think I finally feel settled in now, like, I feel like I know, like, what's going on, like, where to get food, where to do my laundry, those kind of things,
Mhm.
and it's now more so, like, academics, like, adjusting to classes. I think that's gonna be the hardest, push for me, because prior to classes starting, I was kinda just, like, living life, like, going out not, like, going out like crazy, but, like, going into Harvard Square, like, just exploring and, like, having fun with, like, my friends and stuff, and then,
Mhm.
like, classes hit, and it was like, "Ooh, like, this is college, this is crazy, this is hard." And so, it's been a little bit crazy adjusting to that, but overall, I feel like I've gotten into a groove, which is nice.
As for myself, definitely yes. I feel like I'm finally settling in after 3 weeks, but definitely no. I do not feel like I have a routine down. I think it's such a unique experience this year that is making it more difficult than any other to find some sort of consistency or routine in daily
Mm,
living. And me, a person who typically defines myself and the way that I don't know, set my routine, live my life by the activities that I do, I struggle a lot when those activities are removed.
Mhm.
And it's sort of reminiscent to the type of feeling I had at the very start of quarantine back in March. And I kind of use this analogy to describe myself as I'm pudding, and I typically keep myself structured. I have like a strict regimen of what I like to do that surrounds the sports that I would do and the clubs that I would be in and my classes and my extracurricular activities and my friends and my family. And then all of those walls, those barriers keeping my pudding intact were
Mhm.
removed, and I just bluffed out everywhere and had a really difficult transition experience into
mhm,
online learning. And now I'm having another difficult transition experience into online learning in college. But it's those experiences where you remove yourself from your comfortable status quo and you pressure yourself to find ways to adapt to uncertain situations that
Sure.
I think enable us to find our best selves. So it's been enlightening so far trying to navigate all those difficulties.
No, I mean, that's a really good point. And I mean, I know you reference how I think we have this stability with all the activities in our lives, and obviously that gets really shifted. Like Melissa, I know you play golf, and I'm assuming obviously golf isn't as much of like a concentrated sport. So were you able to continue on with that to a pretty nice extent during quarantine?
Yeah, so for the most part, I
Oh,
was just like
I
going
think
to the
your
country
I think
club.
your Zoom got unmuted. Or there you go. There you go.
Try that again. Sorry, I don't know why I did that. I think I was holding on to
Out of
space bar
habit.
back
It's out of
then.
habit. It's okay.
Yes, out of habit. Anyways, continuing on. Yeah, so it is a pretty socially distanced sport, which I guess I'm grateful for in the end, because like, it's one of the few sports that I could actually probably keep playing during quarantine. And so I actually still pretty regularly went out to the country club. Now, during the first few like weeks and months of like quarantine, I did not go out in general because, sticking by those guidelines. But I think that eventually I started like getting a little used to the idea of maybe going out like once a week, and like obviously like going like really far away from anybody else that I saw, but like just following like wearing a mask and like social distancing. And I actually found that going on the course actually wasn't that bad, because I would just play by myself, and
Right.
so that in itself is just isolating. And then second of all, like if there is another person, they're probably like 200 yards away, and so like I'd say that's pretty safe in terms of social distancing. So yeah, I have been lucky enough to been able to practice during quarantine.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also really interesting to consider. So I know that right now we're in the middle of the comp process at Harvard. Most clubs are, and for those of you who may not be familiar with the comp process, essentially, one would think that getting into Harvard is difficult enough, but once you get in order to be a member of a club, they also have a process one has to go through in order to get into a club, and they call that the comp process. Apparently, nobody really knows what comp stands for, whether it's competition, completion, whatever. It's just a thing. Now, I know that a lot of comps are completion based. Usually they last about a semester. So if you attend that club's workshops that they've created for freshmen, you're usually in. Some of them are also merit or round based. So they're pretty exclusive. And, each round, more and more people are cut. But I know that a lot of clubs are having difficulty because, first of all, some of them may be more outdoorsy. So that means that they can't really have any operations. Or B, even if they're over Zoom, it may not go so well. So, I mean, it's interesting seeing how clubs are unfolding. I'm just curious, are any of you guys comping any clubs on campus this semester?
Yeah, I'm comping. I'm really only going through like one intense comp process, I would say. And the comp for that is it is like a cuts kind of like merit based comp, but it's more so project based rather than like if we had to do like synchronous meetings that is does get kind of hectic like you were saying. So it's more so like project based, and they give us tasks and then we complete projects based on those tasks, and then I guess through that they like evaluate who like advances throughout the process. And
Mm,
then I also kind of did like an audition based kind of situation, so that's like inherently selective.
sure.
And that's kind of been also like an individual type thing, like we send in videos rather than performing live because of the Zoom kind of conflicts. But yeah, that's kind of the thing. I didn't realize how intense comps were, and that's definitely something that no one tells you about Harvard. So keep that in mind,
Definitely.
I guess. Keep that
Yeah,
in mind. But
for
it's
sure.
it's intense, but I think it's if it's something you enjoy, then it's exciting too. So that's good.
Right. Yeah, Tyler, what about
Yeah,
you?
I'll agree with Christian that the comps process kind of hit me out of nowhere. I didn't really anticipate to have to apply to competitive programs after getting into such a competitive program that Harvard definitely is a place of a lot of high achievers, though. So I guess that's what we're all coming to learn to expect. So I am personally involved in two clubs which have comp processes. Luckily, neither of them are extremely competitive, but they do have a certain degree of um, training programs and requirements for new members to complete. And overall, I actually think it's a very effective strategy for ensuring that people who get into clubs not only develop relationships with one another, but also start to develop a mastery in whatever the area of that group is. Because
Sure.
I think right now, in these circumstances, it's so easy to miss meetings or to decide, oh, I'm just not going to do it today, or
Mhm.
to feel apathetic that why would I want to sit through an hour-long Zoom where I'll probably turn my microphone off twice and 90% of the information won't be pertinent to me?
Mhm.
But once you make that step to like get involved in a program that does require your attendance, I think myself at least, I've been finding that the experiences have been a lot more enlightening than I anticipated. So
Oh,
I've been
awesome.
glad for those clown processes.
Yeah, Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, like, so kind of going
I think you
along with that.
unmuted again. Don't worry, it's the class. It's like the
It's
class.
muscle memory. It's muscle
Right,
memory.
exactly.
You're gonna have to forgive me. I'm probably gonna do that so
You're
many more
good.
times today. Um, yeah, so going along with what Kristian was talking about, though, like how the audition process is kind of more virtual and not live. I had something very similar, but thankfully it was not like a comp process, and it was actually open to all people who were interested.
Hmm.
And so it's the Asian American Dance Troupe, and it's very interesting how they're operating this year because we have these workshops that are being held virtually where they mirror their screen and we kind of learn it by like just watching them and they'll follow through and go with the counts and then at the very end because we're all supposed to normally we would do a showcase in the fall where we're all like performing live together but instead this year what they're kind of doing is compiling like a music video sort of thing where we all record ourselves individually and then an editor goes through and pieces that together and what's really neat about it is that they're still able to incorporate like um, different like positioning and like these people on this side of the Zoom will go to the right, and these people on that side of the Zoom will go to the left. And so it's kind of
That's
nice to
cool.
see um, how they're like getting really creative with it, and still making it like something that's actually really engaging, even though it's virtual.
Yeah, like I attended one of the meetings for the South Asian Association, and they put on this event every year called Gungru, which involves similarly it has a lot of music and dancing, and they're working on putting something like that together. And obviously, it'll be virtual, but it's interesting seeing how not just Harvard students, but I think just people in general. I think we've seen within our own society and culture have been coming together to put these really interesting, digital based, programs and events together. It really shows, just like what Tyler was saying, it really brings up, I think, the creativity or the best within us because we're forced to adapt to an environment that I don't think any of us could have ever foreseen. One question I was interested to ask you guys was that I think obviously we will probably go home November 22nd. It hasn't been officially announced yet whether or not freshmen will be able to stay second semester, but I think it's all but certain that we will end up going home. I know that a lot of upperclassmen this semester have actually been either coming to the Cambridge area or they've been going to other areas, but still rooming with some friends. What are your guys' plans? Do you think you're probably going to go home, or do you think that you might stay in the area and just find a place to rent or something like that?
I know that myself, I plan on either petitioning to like stay on campus in the spring, or if like my petition gets denied, then I'll go home. So I don't know, like I don't see myself like renting out a place, but I definitely would like to stay on campus and like stay in the area just because
Right.
I really feel like the way I'm feeling right now with like online learning, I feel like would just be multiplied in a very negative way if I was at home. Not because like my home environment is like bad or anything. Like I love my family, but it's just like being at home in my bedroom is very different than being here. And I think that I know that I would be like way more productive and just feel more like college is like real if I was in a different environment. And so that's kind of my plan, especially like coming here and enjoying it so much. I like don't wanna leave. So that's the goal, but if not, then I'll be back home.
Yeah, personally, I would be ecstatic if a vaccine miraculously was distributed all of a sudden and the university told everyone that we could all come back safely. But knowing my own circumstances, I think in all likelihood I will be at home next semester, which I think you make what the best out of the situation, and you get what you put into it. So I'm hopeful. I'm cautiously optimistic that I'll be able to turn it into a positive experience. I already have a potential job worked up for the spring where I'll be able to hopefully make a little money, which would be helpful because after this year I'll be taking a 2-year leave of absence to go on a religious mission. So I'll
Well,
just
that's
kind of
awesome.
be extending that
Okay.
extending that gap of time.
You know where you're going?
um, I don't actually, and I won't find out until the end of the spring, beginning of the summer, right before I actually leave. So, could be anywhere in the world, could be in the United States, but fingers crossed a little bit for outside the United States. Also Spanish speaking because I somewhat habla español, but very poorly, as you can tell by that atrocious American accent.
That's awesome though.
But
2 years. Wow.
yeah, yeah. So that'll be something that will hopefully help me break up my college experience, and maybe I'll be able to reset from start from scratch when I get back here and everything's normal. And 3 years from now, I start my sophomore year.
Sure.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I would probably also be spending my time at home. But I'll be fairly honest, like I have not been venturing out that much here in Cambridge, so my life in my dorm room is very similar to my life at home. So I think that like for me, I would be okay with it. And like obviously, ideally, like again, like vaccine comes out and we can all come back to campus safely.
Mhm.
But after trying to be so optimistic in the summer that the pandemic would die down before we came here, I've learned from that situation to kind of keep my expectations low, and if we're lucky enough, have it exceed those expectations. So
Right.
I definitely expect to be learning from home. But I've heard that my mom has done some serious redecorating to the house, so maybe when I come back, it'll look like a completely new place, anyways.
That's awesome. And I mean, what's interesting is I think while the pandemic remains a very, massive issue, it's been interesting to see how Harvard's been dealing with the whole situation. I know that by testing people 3 times a week, they've really been effective at clamping down on the virus. I pulled up their dashboard in front of me, so that looks at a list of positive cases over the last 7 days. So it seems that in the last 7 days, they have had, let's see, uh, from September 14th to September 20th, they've had 4 people test positive total. So 3 of them are faculty or staff, and then 1 of them is an undergraduate. So let me look at what that testing rate is. They have it here. So that's a 0.03% testing rate. So out of 15,367 total tests, they've had 4 positive cases in the last 7 days, which is really interesting because I know that a lot of other places in the U.S. are struggling, and it really goes to show that I think the frequent testing has been pretty effective at keeping everybody monitored on campus. So essentially, I think when it comes to the whole vaccine, I know we've heard like different reports in the news. It sounds like it'll, obviously, God willing, that by the end of I think Q1 is what I've been hearing in the news. That they're expecting to at least have an answer. But even then, I think the debate as to how the vaccine will be distributed will be a really interesting one to watch because I think that in itself will take several months to accomplish. And obviously, it's fingers crossed that come next fall when we would be starting sophomore year, things would be fine. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that like next year we would be able to start on time, or do you think that we may have another restrictive situation where maybe some classes have to stay home?
I guess like I speak from this because my dad is actually a virologist who's currently working on a vaccine, and
Wow,
so
that's cool.
based on what from he's like been telling me, I do expect that there will be a vaccine likely sometime by the end of this year or the start of next year. But with given the time that it's been created in, like obviously much faster than we would normally expect, it's it's hard to tell whether it will be super effective necessarily because you can have because obviously safety comes first, and so you might have a vaccine that isn't like entirely effective. Like it definitely helps protect, but it doesn't like ensure that you can't get it. Kind of like how the flu vaccine each year, like sometimes there's only a 50% match, and like you can still get the flu even if you have the vaccine.
Hmm.
And so there's a possible case where it'll be something like that, and we'll still have to enforce like mask wearing and social distancing measures until we can get like a better version of the vaccine, or I guess in the scenario that the vaccine is distributed among like most of the population, and we can talk about that more later, just like the distribution in general. But
Right.
like if it is able to be distributed among like an entire population, and we can achieve some sort of herd immunity, that might be another way we might be able to get back to normal by the time of next fall.
Hmm.
But I guess it's just really hard to tell because you can't really predict whether the vaccine is going to be super effective and if it will get distributed to the public in a timely fashion.
Right.
Again, like because either A, people may not have access to it, or B, if people do have access to it, it's possible that they might be hesitant in getting it just considering the time that it was created.
Right. That's a good point. So I know this is on a completely different note, but I'm just wondering. So Tyler, Kristian, are you guys still making videos while you've been on campus?
I have been. I first made a Harvard move-in vlog, and since then I've been working on 2 or 3 other projects. One of which has been a sort of mini documentary, a more serious thing than the usually goofy, wacky, not really pre-planned stuff that I would usually publish about student life during COVID here at Harvard for the freshmen who did decide to come to campus,
Mhm.
sort of similar to the issues that this podcast talks on. And I've been finding a lot of interesting things from the people who I've been interviewing and from those who I've been talking to. And the most meaningful of which I think was a remark that somebody made about what they think has been the best part of his experience so far, which was that in 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the line, when alumni from the class of 2020 at any university meet each other, typically it's like a happy experience to meet someone who's an alumni from your university, and even happier if they were from your same class. But for us, when we meet someone from the class of 2020, we'll share a really deep bonding experience. It won't just be that surface level, oh, did you know this person who was on this team, or did you do this club? It'll be, oh, where were you during the pandemic? Where were you on campus? How was your experience? And I know the trope of these are unprecedented historic times is super exhausting right now, but I think that was a pretty helpful way to actually put in perspective that um, this will have there's going to be a time in the future where we're going to be looking back on it and remembering each other as the people who shared a common experience, which is meaningful to me.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah.
right. I mean, it's like we had like, and Matt, it's like our senior year. I think. Were you guys able to have a prom, or was that canceled for you guys as well?
I didn't
No
have a
prom.
prom, but we were able to have a graduation. It was like a you could bring 2 people situation, and we had it like outside, like at a football stadium, like social distance. But yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for that, but we didn't have like a prom or like any other senior events.
Sure. And I'm sorry, Kristian, I interrupted you, but yeah, you were saying
No, you're good.
about.
Yeah, I I definitely I have a lot of content that I made before, like before I left home, and then like in the first couple of days that I was at Harvard.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of getting it up. So it's coming soon. If you're listening, hopefully it'll be out by the time you watch this. School definitely caught me a little. It kind of jerked me back, but I'm now like kind of getting a little idea of what how to manage my time better. So yes, I plan to make content while I'm on campus. That's the goal. That's the dream. So coming
And
very soon.
and to everybody who's watching, at this point in the video, and also you'll find it in the description. We'll have links to both Tyler and Kristian's channels, so you should absolutely go. Make sure you like,
Yes.
subscribe, all of that.
Like,
We have
comment,
photos from
Will
live.
subscribe,
do, yes.
hit
Absolutely,
that bell, all the things.
absolutely. Yeah, make sure you
Commit
turn on
aggravated
notifications.
assault on that like button. This video
Yes.
too.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, see, but that's exactly like what Tyler's talking about. It's so awesome to see the creativity people can just bring about when they're in such an interesting kind of situation. Um, yeah, and I mean, it'll be weird to see as well once it starts getting colder. I know we can already feel it at night, especially. Once it starts getting colder, how are students going to continue socializing? That definitely might require some more creativity because I think it's most of the time it's always going outside. So, I mean, what are your guys' ideas on that?
I think you're right that
I
we're gonna have to think outside of the box. I think
yeah.
I mean,
It'll take a
right
while.
now socializing consists 90% of going outside and sitting in the courtyard and asking someone how their classes were today, and 5% of going outside to watch the sunset on the bridge or going to Boston to
Yeah,
see something, and another 5% of you DM somebody in a Zoom call and be like, "Hey, nice to see you," and then they
yeah, exactly.
leave you.
I know that.
They leave you on red. So I think Harvard students, I mean, have been demonstrating their creativity so far and creating little communities like this podcast. So I'm confident people are going to find ways to fulfill their need for social interaction. But you're right, we're going to need to be thinking outside the box to make that happen.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like for the most part, I've been seeing like students like congregate at like Widener or on the river, and that seems to be like the two hot spots I would say. But I do also have hopes that if, like you mentioned earlier, like we Harvard seems to be doing a pretty good job managing cases and keeping cases low. It's possible that they might begin to open up a few facilities with like very limited numbers and populations, like that might be indoors. So like maybe allowing like 5 people in like a really open room or something like that. And like students could probably like try to reserve time and say like, hey, I want to be here from like this hour or
Yeah.
something. And so assuming that the university does continue going in a positive direction, I do have hopes that they may begin to do stuff like that. But yeah, like Tyler said, like the students here are super creative. Like I'm sure they'll come up with something. So
Now, before we go, I do want to just quickly. Sorry, Tyler, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say gyms, libraries, and music rooms. Those would be a world of a difference if they could
Absolutely.
find any sort of way. I heard gyms were supposed to be opening up with strict regulations sometime soon,
Hmm.
and I really hope they can find a way to let us study inside those libraries. Change a little bit of the monotony of sitting at a desk for 2 hours in a Zoom call and then doing a P set for another two at the same desk
Literally.
right after. But yeah,
I mean, it's
I
literally
really hope they
like
can open those up.
it's literally one of those things where it's like, what's your favorite building you haven't been able to enter yet?
Yeah.
Um, but you know,
I
okay.
gotta
Before we, sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
Oh no, I was gonna say I gotta say like my insider information about gyms is that to look. So for anybody listening, look out for September 27th or September 28th because that's apparently when they might begin opening up gyms. But
Ooh.
don't quote me on that. But that's the information that I
I think we
have.
have that's the video title. That there's like an inside scoop. There we go.
So.
All right.
Okay, now before we go, I have to mention this because this is something that Kristian shared that is extremely interesting to me. That she worked on a makeup project,
Oh, okay. I
and,
was like, what did I?
talk about that. I need to hear about this. And also, how can I get?
Yeah. Yeah, so I did a program called Girls United Beautiful Possibilities. It started my junior year of high school, went into like my senior fall, and it through the program it was with Ulta Beauty and Essence, and it was like the major like goal of it was to like increase diversity in the beauty industry.
Hmm,
And so through that program it was myself and 5 other girls, and we kind of just made a makeup collection, like a capsule collection, with like we worked with Ulta Beauty's teams and stuff, and it was super cool. Like definitely best experience ever. Wrote my personal statement about it, so that's how kind of low key got me into Harvard. And yeah, it was really really fun. That was my I guess like turning point so far, like biggest thing I've done so far. Very
awesome.
proud of it. I think sometimes it's still in stores, so if you go to Ulta Beauty, like look at like the bottom shelf, it may still be in there. So you may get lucky and see it.
If we can find it online, you will see another link for that in the description. Everybody, make sure you go
Okay.
and support Tyler, Kristian, two very, very creative Harvard freshmen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Quarantine at Harvard. My name is Fez Zuffer, joined by Melissa, Kristian, Tyler. We are grateful for your time. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Jeez.